Welcome to the Nerf Report. Welcome back to the Nerf Report. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. No, I'm filming my show for the YouTube. Stop being salty.
The ghost of Macho Man Randy Savage is here.
And in the history of the Nerf Report, with all of the videos we've ever made, this one is definitely going to be our jump the shark moment. Hey, welcome back to the Nerf Report. My name is Bryant. We have an absolutely massive show lined up for you this week. Xbox has announced major updates to its cloud gaming offering that are going to alter the cloud gaming landscape forever. Google Stadia laid out exactly what gamers should expect from its relationship with Immersive Streams For Games. Geoff Keighly's Summer Game Fest showed off over 30 games. And finally, we have a very special guest. We are joined by one of the creators of Death Carnival, Herbert from Furyion Games. All of this and so much more on this week's episode of the Nerf Report.
Are you listening?
All right, I don't want to waste too much time here in the beginning because we have a total of 5 pages. 5 pages of gaming news to talk about, so let's jump straight into the first story. Xbox has doubled down on cloud gaming. Now, if you missed it, Xbox posted an article this week titled, "Xbox is building the gaming platform for the next 20 years." And this was written by Will Tuttle, the editor-in-chief of the Xbox Wire. And a key thing to note is that this article explains that Xbox just got done celebrating their 20th anniversary, which, round of applause for Xbox, 20 years. There were moments I did not think that you were going to survive past the red ring and Xbox One, but you're here. Congratulations, mazel tov to the family, and Phil Spencer, when are you coming on the show? Now, in this article, Xbox begins to lay out like 5 things that they're going to be focusing on changing. The first one is probably the biggest. An Xbox app is coming to Samsung smart TVs as part of Samsung's gaming hub starting June 30th, which I understand we use this word a lot, but this is earth-shattering in the world of gaming. Essentially, if you own a brand new 2022 Samsung television, you can install an Xbox app and play games via Game Pass and not need a console. How huge is that? And shout out to Tom Warren over at The Verge, who posted a video of the Xbox TV app where he shows pairing your controller to the television, logging into Game Pass Ultimate, and of course, the standard cloud gaming interface, which we've come to expect with Game Pass. And just for shits and giggles, I went ahead and just looked up how much one of these televisions go for. Base model, 55-inch, Samsung 2022 model, we're looking at about anywhere from $1,300 to $1,400, which means zero chance that this show can afford that. We make like $300 a month here on the Nerf Report, and there is zero chance that we can afford it. And then I was like, well, maybe I will just buy it for the channel. And then I remembered I'm married and I also have a kid now, so probably not going to happen. Anyway, that was not the only Xbox Cloud Gaming news that we had, as Xbox has officially expanded Xbox Cloud Gaming to new countries, including New Zealand and Argentina, which good for the hobbits, right? Good for the hobbits. They finally get to play Xbox Cloud Gaming. And Argentina, don't think that I'm forgetting about you, even though you have a very suspicious amount of Germans down there. How did all these Germans get down here, and when did they come? Anyway, I'm sure Wolfenstein is available on Game Pass, and you can play that via the cloud, so Argentinians, celebrate! Microsoft also announced that they are bringing a new gaming experience to Edge and Windows 11, which include things like optimizations for Windows games, a new HDR calibration app, a brand new Game Pass widget, a new controller bar that makes navigating the menus so much easier, built-in clarity boost for Edge browsers, and a brand new game menu. Bringing us to the final 2 announcements, and this next one I think is right behind that coming to TV announcement as being like, this is awesome. Xbox revealed that they're going to be offering more to Xbox Game Pass subscribers, specifically announcing that later this year, Game Pass Ultimate will begin to offer cloud support for games bought outside of Game Pass that are already in your library. Round of applause for the folks at Xbox. This is what I have been begging for with Xbox Cloud Gaming. Yes, Game Pass is awesome, but I also own games on the platform. Let me go out, buy a game, and be able to play it. However, definitely worth pointing out here, it says select games, so we don't know which games will be allowed or will be included. The other thing to keep in mind is the Game Pass subscription is still required. So it's like, yes, you get to buy your own games and play them, but you still need to pay for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So maybe one day we're going to see a world where I can buy a game on Xbox and stream it without needing a subscription. Xbox also revealed a brand new thing called Project Moorcroft, which is coming to Game Pass, which is a new discovery tool and curated demos for Game Pass subscribers. And the final announcement from Xbox this week is that the Design Lab has been updated with brand new colors, and they're expanding its availability to 11 new countries. Design Lab, of course, is where you can create your own custom controller. I checked it out a little bit. It's cool. I've just never been one for like custom designs or anything on a controller. Like I've got one controller that I made myself, but other than that, I'm just like, yeah, I'm good with standard colors. But at the end of the day, what killer announcements from Xbox? And the Xbox Bethesda showcase is still this weekend. Like, these announcements could have been great for a showcase and everybody would have been like, wow, that's fantastic. But Xbox still had more to announce. This is just going to be an epic weekend for Xbox, and congratulations to the team, and clearly getting a ton of support from the top. As the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, tweeted, "Gaming is for everyone, everywhere, and we're committed to bringing the joy and community of gaming to billions of players around the world on Xbox, PC, and other devices with the power of Xbox Cloud Gaming." Sure has come a very long way from Microsoft being like, we don't really consider ourselves a gaming company. Anyway, bravo Xbox, good luck this weekend. Can't wait to see what you guys have to announce. All right, next up, let's talk about Stadia and Immersive Stream for Games and some of the revelations that dropped this week. Back in March, if you're not aware, Google announced a white-labeled version of Stadia called Immersive Stream for Games at GDC, where TLDR, they're basically taking the Stadia technology, white-labeling it, and allowing other studios, companies, developers to kind of put their games on the cloud and offer them to their customers in kind of a business-to-business relationship where the developers can now go direct-to-consumer. Since then, we've already seen AT&T use Immersive Stream for Games to offer control to their customer base, and that's on top of them already offering Arkham Knight using this technology. And this week, Capcom announced a free demo of Resident Evil Village that was being powered by Immersive Stream for Games. And you know, one of the things I've been struggling with Google Stadia is Google has never really explained how Immersive Stream for Games is going to impact the already existing Stadia player base. I mean, you've got members of the Stadia community out there that are assuming that, well, if a game comes to Immersive Stream for Games, well, then it's gotta come to Stadia because they already went through all that work to get the game on the cloud, just bring it over to Stadia as well. Whereas on the flip side of that argument, you also have a segment of the community that's looking at that announcement and saying, well, this clearly is the final nail for Stadia, but problem is, this is so murky, and Google has never really said, this is how this will impact Stadia, so we're all just kind of out there assuming. Anyway, this week, Stadia shared a blog post on Twitter saying, question, what does Immersive Stream for Games and Capcom USA have in common? Answer, dedication to bringing games directly to the players, starting with the launch of a cloud demo for Resident Evil Village, which this post then links to a blog post that's kind of going into more details surrounding this announcement. And while this blog post was helpful, it was also confusing, and shout out to friend of the show, Lee Reed, over at Gaming Source Network, who pointed out on Twitter that in this blog post, Stadia wrote, Immersive Stream also powered the launch of Stadia, showcasing how a dedicated cloud gaming platform can help players discover more than 200 games and counting without waiting for downloads to install. Which Lee then pointed out on Twitter, the U-turn Google has done with Stadia is quite something. Now acting like this was the plan all along, pretending that Stadia was just part of, and the end goal was Immersive Stream for Games. And look, agree or disagree with what Lee is saying there is a major issue with the lack of communication, so we're all just kind of throwing darts in the dark. I mean, outside of Phil Harrison putting a blog post out a year ago saying, we're committed to making Stadia the best gaming platform moving forward, I mean, we really don't know anything. So I took the opportunity and reached out to Stadia on Twitter, and I asked them point blank, congrats on the launch. What does this mean for those of us still using the Stadia platform? If developers launch games on their own service through Immersive Stream for Games, does this mean that they will eventually be coming to Stadia as well? And to Stadia's credit, they actually responded, hey Bryant, thanks for the question. The specific answer will always be up to our partners. Some are interested in a direct relationship with players, some want to take advantage of the distribution opportunity they have with Stadia, and some, like Capcom, are doing both. Kudos to Stadia for responding. I appreciate the transparency, and it means a lot that you took the time to do that. However, reading that kind of left me with a lot of emotions and thoughts. One, we now know that just because a developer uses Immersive Stream for Games doesn't guarantee that it will directly impact Stadia at all. Two, you know, I gotta admit, I'm bummed. It's seeing like more and more the Business Insider articles becoming true. You know, Stadia is being deprioritized for Immersive Stream for Games, and if that's becoming the case, in a lot of ways, Immersive Stream for Games is really the only thing that's keeping Stadia alive at this point. Number three, despite speculation within the community, Batman Arkham Knight is probably not going to be coming to Stadia. If there's no requirement between Google, Immersive Stream for Games, and the developers to also bring those games to Stadia, we're not going to see it. And number four, how is Immersive Stream for Games not just another competitor for Google Stadia. Look, a couple years ago, Netflix talked about attention spans of their audience. They consider things like Fortnite a competitor against people watching shows on their channel. Stadia with Immersive Stream for Games. I understand why they're doing it. They're using the technology to keep the team employed and offering it to other people. However, I can't help but feel like Stadia is creating unnecessary competition when they already have companies like Xbox, GeForce Now, and Amazon Luna who are just pounding at the gates to take Stadia's position. And now you're bringing every other developer in the world into this same environment for you to compete with on attention. I don't know. I'm really struggling right now. On one hand, I love Stadia. I think it's one of the best cloud gaming platforms out there, but I have to admit to myself that the platform that I fell in love with, that captured my imagination at GDC almost 3 years ago, that's not the platform that we have today. And yeah, it's kind of a bummer. All right, moving on, let's talk about Summer Games Fest, which took place this week, which of course is Geoff Keighly's event that's kind of taking the place of E3 this year. And I gotta give him kudos. We saw over 30 new games or announcements or updates kind of at this year's show. Interestingly enough, it started off with a trigger warning. And I just want to pull up this graphic real quick. It said, the following program may contain content that some viewers find offensive. And Jeff, clearly you've never seen the Nerf report. Please, offend me. Offend me, Jeff. Anyway, this year's show had really awesome announcements, like we got our first gameplay footage of Street Fighter 6 showing off Guile. There was a ton of space games announced. We got Callisto Protocol, which is launching on December 2nd, Aliens Dark Descent, Fort Solace, Flashback 2, Modern Warfare 2 dropped a brand new gameplay trailer. We got our first look at a brand new game called Witchfire, which is essentially just Elden Ring with guns, and I gotta admit, this game looks super awesome. I'm intrigued. We got a brand new RTS game called Stormgate, which is being worked on the team who worked on StarCraft. Layers of Fear 2 got a new trailer, and it's going to be launching in early 2023 for the Epic Game Store, PlayStation, and Xbox. Marvel showed off a brand new trailer for their upcoming game Midnight Sun, which probably my favorite part of this announcement was the tweet from Xbox. Let's pull that up. Basically, the tweet was the biggest clickbait I've ever seen on Twitter. Spider-Man is coming to Xbox, and I'm sure someone was like, oh my god, Marvel's Spider-Man on PlayStation's coming to Xbox, but then like you click the link and you see it's Midnight Sun. Hey, if you posted that tweet, round of applause. Great, great tweet right there. This event also dropped a new trailer for Goat Simulator 3, which brought to my attention that I'm still not over Dead Island, because this trailer essentially starts off with the exact same intro to Dead Island, and I'm like, oh man, we're getting a new one, or they're finally releasing it after years, and then you see this stupid goat. Hey man, if you want to play a video game with goats and live your best life, just being the goat that you never could be, you know, I'm not gonna judge you, but there are way better games to play. Oh, Last of Us. It leaked earlier in the day, but we also got a ton of Last of Us announcements. First up, we got an update on Last of Us multiplayer, which essentially is just going to be like Factions 2.0. It's going to have its own standalone story, brand new characters, and it will be releasing in 2023. And according to Neil Druckmann, the size of this multiplayer experience is pretty much going to be on par with the size of the original game, which is really exciting. Now, if we can dive into that image that they posted up real quick, I think that this is going to be a Battle Royale game, which I know there's people out there who's like, ugh, I'm done with Battle Royale, but a Last of Us Battle Royale game would be sick. The reason I think that this is happening is if you look around the city, you can kind of see a ring of smoke coming in. Looks similar to what we've seen with other games. Last of Us already has tiered weapon, armor, crafting. I think it would be a sick Battle Royale game. Plus, throw clickers and the infected in there, and you got a really, really good experience right there. Naughty Dog also announced that The Last of Us Part 1 Remastered will be launching on September 22nd. Essentially, this game has been completely remade from the ground up. Interestingly enough, it's going to be $70 when it launches. We are officially in a brave new world of video games. $70 video games. Which brings us to The Rock, who was the star of the show and joined us from his Iron Paradise. And I can't do it justice, so let's just play the clip real quick.
Dwayne Johnson, welcome to Summer Game Fest. How are you?
What's up, everybody? And what's up, Jeff? And what is up to the Summer Game Fest audiences live streaming right now around the world? Dwayne Johnson here, coming at you from my Iron Paradise, the very hot and sweaty and smelly Iron Paradise, powered by, of course, Zoa Energy, the #1 fastest growing energy drink in the game. You guys know me by a lot of nicknames. The Rock, La Roca in Spanish, Uncle Handsome, sexiest man alive.
And you know, shout out to The Rock for still being a gamer and calling us from his Iron Paradise, but I can't help but be bummed that Geoff Keighly didn't use my video. What's up, everybody, and what's up, Jeff, and what's up to the Summer Game Fest audience? I'm coming to you powered by Red Diamond Unsweet Iced Tea. Not a sponsor, but they sure as hell could be. Hit me up, Red Diamond. So refreshing. You guys know me by a lot of nicknames. Bryant, Nerf Daddy, Nerf Herder Numero Uno, Not My Churro, Parrot, El Diablo Francisco, Mark Smallburgers, Michael Skeet Skeeton, and of course, shout out to all the ladies out there who just simply call me Wow. Alright, let's dive into the next story. World War Z Crossplay is coming to Google Stadia. Yeah, this was announced on Twitter from the official World War Z Twitter account. If you remember, World War Z launched on Stadia on April 8th as part of Stadia Pro, and at launch it was missing probably the biggest feature that it could have been missing, and that was crossplay, which unless you were actually playing with friends that you know on Stadia, not having crossplay on Stadia really sucks because you're just constantly just waiting for people, or you're playing with AI, which kind of takes away from the game a little bit. Anyway, as we mentioned, World War Z tweeted on Twitter this week, for Stadia players, we plan to deliver an update with crossplay and the cut and mend update, and we'll have more news on timing as soon as we can. Which, shout out to the developer, thank you for following through on your promise. I'm excited. Downside is we didn't really get a date. They just said coming soon, so we'll just have to wait to hear more. If you're a developer and you're watching this, hey, if you're bringing a game to Stadia or any platform in 2022 or beyond, just have crossplay, please. Just save us all the pain. And keeping with the trend of Stadia, we got some really confusing reports surrounding Saints Row potentially coming to Google Stadia. This all started because the upcoming Saints Row video game had been rated by the ESRB as coming. Shout out to Stadia Source for discovering this. If you're not aware, Saints Row, of course, is a modern retelling of the video game. It's got next-gen graphics, brand new story, brand new characters. Looks super dope. Saints Row holds a very special place in my heart because it's like GTA, but it's GTA on crack. Like, if the GTA developers were really allowed to do anything, that's what Saints Row would be. You've got dildo bats, you've got Roddy Piper in the game, Hulk Hogan's a lucha libre, and Saints Row also is home to one of the greatest action sequences where you're skydiving onto your enemy's base and Kanye's Power is playing in the background. Absolutely top 10 favorite moments in video games. Now, the moral of the story here, rating sites don't really mean anything until it's officially announced by either Stadia or one of the developers, because shout out to Duncan12Escape over on Twitter. He basically posted today, I can now 100% this now. As it stands, there are no plans for Saints Row to come to Stadia. I did reach out to Duncan for clarification. We spoke, he explained to me the situation, and as it stands, I'm in Duncan's boat right now. I don't think that this game will be launching day and date on Stadia. That doesn't mean the game isn't coming to the platform. We could see it a couple months after, like we've seen with Borderlands and other things, but at this point, I cannot say that this game will be coming day and date with the other gaming platforms, and this just comes back to, like, if it is coming to Stadia day and date, why not announce it? Why not announce that the game is coming to Stadia when you announced PlayStation and Xbox and all the other consoles and platforms to allow your player base to make the plans of where they're going to be purchasing this game? Alright, moving on to our final story. Amazon Luna just received 2 brand new horror games. We talked about this last week that the games were coming, but as of right now, Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, the remake, have launched for Luna Plus subscribers. Unlike the first game, which takes place in the mansion, Resident Evil 2 brings you to Raccoon City, and you will play as Claire Redfield and Leon Kennedy as you have to escape and survive the city, along with facing Mr. X. Resident Evil 3, on the other hand, is our introduction to the Nemesis, where players will play as Jill Valentine, who must escape the Nemesis and bring Umbrella to justice. Shout out to Amazon Luna for bringing 2 more solid games to the platform, and I know I say this a lot, but man, Amazon Luna Plus, if you haven't checked it out, $9.99 a month. It has a solid lineup of games, but also a solid lineup of horror titles. Check out this list. Control Ultimate Edition, Resident Evil Biohazard, Alien Isolation, Blair Witch, Amnesia Rebirth, Shadow Man, Observer, Medium, Carrion, and now Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, the remake. Killer titles that are definitely worth checking out right now. Alright, next up we have a very special guest. We are joined by none other than one of the developers working on the upcoming game Death Carnival, Herbert Young from Furyion Games. Herbert, thank you so much for being here.
It's awesome to be here. Brian, I love your show. I love the content that you have. I love the excitement that you bring, like in your face attitude. I love it. It's such a great match for what we have. So glad to be here.
Your game, Death Carnival, is very exciting. I've been paying attention to it and watching some of my fellow content creators talk to you about the game, and I hope this doesn't offend you, but I've been kind of waiting on the sidelines. I've been letting it kind of develop and cook a little bit because it looks so radical that I just wanted to get a hold of you once the game was getting close to completion. And I'm curious, how do you describe Death Carnival to someone who's never seen this game before?
You brought up a really good point when you said giving us time to cook, because that is exactly what we went through. And when you asked me, okay, what kind of game is Death Carnival? At first glance, okay, what is it? It's a top-down shooter. It's an arcade top-down shooter. That's the gist of it. But I mean, what else? Like, what do we do when we during this cooking process, during this development process? We added a lot to it, as in, okay, we started with the top-down format, the camera format, because it was easy for people to play. It was easy for people to pick up and to spectate, to observe, because we didn't want to create a game that was very difficult to play in terms of just sitting down, grabbing your controller, grabbing your mouse keyboard, and be able to immediately play. We wanted a game that was easy to play, but at the same time, it involved a lot of cross gameplay from a lot of different genres. For example, when you think of fast action gameplay, you would think of like Marvel vs. Capcom, Street Fighter, Super Smash, right? You think of all those kind of games for the fast kind of gameplay. So we have a lot of that fast-paced gameplay. On top of that, first-person shooters, where you have the environment where you can crouch behind, that you can dodge behind, that you can go up and down vertical, a lot of vertical aspects, go in, hide behind buildings. We have all of that. So we took a few different genres of all the things I mentioned, plus this arcade simplicity of games like Smash TV, Contra, Metal Slug. We took all that and combine it together into Death Carnival. So it's really hard to describe exactly what it is. It's something that we took a lot of our time to cook up, and it's something to be experienced.
You mentioned time. How long have you actually been working on this game for?
So we went through a lot of different prototypes where we tested different games. We actually started with a fantasy game format. We actually eventually had a prototype where it was more of a sci-fi setting. We went through a lot of different prototypes where we prototyped a game in the beginning that was more like a giant rave party with music, and it was nuts. So we went through a lot of different prototypes, years. We spent years doing prototypes. Eventually in 2019, around there, when we really started sitting down and creating what you now know as Death Carnival.
I believe you guys were part of the Stadia Makers program, correct?
Yeah, we were invited as the first round of the Stadia Makers program, and we were connected for Unity. We have always had a really good long-term relationship with Unity. They've been such a huge help to us. Like whenever we talked about new technologies that we were interested in, we did a program with Unity where we were able to do a lot of permutation in terms of the weapons and the weapon modules and how we combine different weapons into new weapons. We did a whole program with them with that, and it was really fun.
It's funny because I've got a little experience in game development. Like, I made a game on Crata, and I don't technically consider that game development because, like, I made it in the matter of a weekend, and you're talking about a game that takes the matter of years. Those are just two different things. But from someone who knows absolutely nothing other than that in game development, what's the difference between Unity and maybe the Unreal Engine?
Unity is really good for indie studios because you have such a wide community. Like, Unity is massive, right? In terms of the community size, the type of assets that you have available from the asset store. I mean, the asset store from Unity is probably one of the biggest advantage game developers have these days. You can just jump on, you can download all these templates, and you can download all these projects, all these art assets. And when you're saying a week, you can use the Unity asset store and get up and running within a week. That's not the problem. Prototypes, it's pretty quick. It's the polished part of it is to getting that perfect feel, that is what takes a long time.
Whereas the Unreal Engine has just less of a community, or it just feels less indie. I mean, what's the difference there?
I think Unreal, they started from a different area. Like they were always more AAA, and more of the for the movie industry. I think with their new technology, I mean, there's definitely a threat to Unity, right? Like, you know, it's obvious with their new technology, with Lumen, with their 9A technology. It's a big deal for the film industry and for the AAA industry. But I think with the recent acquisition of Weta by Unity, you know the people who made Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, Lord of the Rings, King Kong, Weta does everything that I love.
I mean, that they just basically it's Unity throwing down, you know, the gauntlet, the glove, and they're ready for a face-off.
So going back to the Stadia Makers program, when partnering with Unity and Google came out with this program, did Google come to you guys, or did Google go to Unity and Unity just reached out to a couple developers and said, would you like
exactly
to
that's exactly what happened. I know they did several phases of the Stadia Makers program. We were in the first phase. I think they picked like 3 studios for the first phase, and then after that they opened it up to a bunch more to introduce more and more titles to the platform. But basically, exactly as you said.
And obviously, for the people watching and listening to this who may not know, the Stadia Makers program gives you some extra funding and a dev kit, correct?
That is exactly right. They it's those two things. They give us some resource support, but I think most of all they have really good technical support, because I mean it's Google. They're one of the largest corporations in the world, but their main thing is their support system is so good. Like you send an email to them and it just automatically gets like connected to like all these people, like engineers, like account executives, and they're like, okay, what can we do to help you? Do you need like several, engineers that cost us, like millions of dollars? Sure, here you go. Because they have the staff, they have the people.
Interesting. Now, are the people that you're communicating with inside of Google, are those Stadia employees, or is it just generic Google employees?
No, they actually have a dedicated Stadia department. That they put in a lot of resources into.
And do those employees help you make the game? Like, are they there to help you develop or tweak the game?
No, they that's not part of what they do. They don't do tweaks, but they directly connect us with engineering teams. So it's either connecting with the Google Stadia engineering team, or they also at the same time may connect us. It depends on the relevancy of the particular tickets. May connect us with the Unity side engineering team. But I mean, there's a lot of people involved in the whole show. Now,
you already mentioned as part of the Stadia Makers program that Stadia sent you out a dev kit. What's it look like?
Can I don't think I can mention anything. I don't think I can mention that. But it looks pretty sexy. I mean, it's a big thing and it looks very sexy. And it's really fast. Like the hardware in there, it's like, wow, like people actually can afford this kind of hardware.
Yeah, as a fan of Stadia, there's 2 things that I've constantly got my eyes out for. One is a clear Stadia controller that they gave out to the initial employees. And then number 2 is the Stadia dev kit. And I've still never seen what a Stadia dev kit looks like. So maybe one day there'll be an image that leaks online about it.
I'm surprised there hasn't been any leak though. I mean, good on us developers.
Or good on Google, who owns like the world's largest image repository. So maybe like an image pops up and they just completely shut it down. Now, going back to the game Death Carnival, we've talked about some of the inspirations and it looks just awesome. And one of the things that I read online was that there's a single player campaign mode and then there's like a competitive online mode. As someone who's, eat, sleep, breathe, and just lived this game for the last couple years, what is your favorite mode inside the game?
I think both of them, and for different reasons. So for the story campaign, I think it's about what the core vibe of the game is about, and what the core emotional aspects of the game is about. The story campaign represents something that is near and dear to my heart and a team's heart, because it's about sometimes not being in a good situation but overcoming near impossible odds to win the day, to survive and to win. And when you experience the single player, when you experience the story campaign, there's a lot of that element where you have these giant mobs, just hordes and rushing at you and trying to destroy you, but you just manage to survive and you manage to win just through pure grit and through your willpower and spirit. There's a lot of anime that's kind of like that, right? Like you survive and you just tough it out and you survive and win the day. And we have a lot of that kind of vibe in Death Carnival.
From a gameplay perspective, is it twin stick? Is it trigger happy? I mean, how do we shoot guns? How do we actually play?
So the controls scheme was something that we were extremely careful about because we really labeled it as an arcade top-down shooter. For very specific reasons, because we didn't really want to add so many controls where it was difficult to master, difficult to learn within the first session or even for the first 30 seconds. We wanted something that was simple. Twin stick, so left stick, you use it to move your character, and right stick you shoot. And then you can use your sword, you can dashes, and through a combination of that you can do other things. But it's at its core of it, it's really just two sticks. And in mouse keyboard, you can also do that. WASD, right mouse button, left mouse button. It's fairly easy.
Now, I noticed on your guys' website, you also mentioned that there's going to be some streamer-specific tools or content creation style modes. Can you touch on that at all right now, or is that still in development?
That's still in development, but that is going to be a major part of Death Carnival. Because Death Carnival itself, it's the premise of it, the story of it is about a death game show at its core. And so we're not using that just as a theme, but we're actually fully integrating that into what we do with the content creators, the streamers, that kind of aspect. So in the very beginning, we implemented what may be common in other games, such as you type in chats on Twitch or YouTube, and it detects it and it spawns some stuff. I mean, that's pretty easy stuff. So we didn't want to just do that. We wanted to integrate a much more Hunger Games kind of approach, where it's a lot more impact onto what the content creator is doing, what the streamer is doing, and at the same time, we actually want to make it viable to stream Death Carnival for content creators. Because one thing is, like, I have a lot of friends who are small streamers, medium streamers, and it's tough. It's really tough to survive as a content creator, as a streamer. Like it's near impossible these days, right? There's so much competition and revenue. You have to fight over the revenue, right? Some people, like you guys do better than others, but it's still hard. So we're out to make it possible and to make it much easier to sustain Death Carnival streaming.
We're talking about content creation and streaming, and that's kind of become such a viable success opportunity for indie developers and developers in general. Is if you get your game in front of the right people, it's going to blow up. I think prime examples of that are like Among Us, Fortnite's a prime example of that. Just games that streaming communities have embraced and they've become huge. And then on the flip side, you hear stories of larger developers like EA dropping $1 million per streamer just to get them to play the game. From someone who's kind of more on the indie spectrum of game development, how do you guys approach that type of environment? Do you hope that, it catches on, or are there things that you guys are planning to kind of maybe encourage a viral launch if possible?
So we certainly do not have the budget of large companies like EA, right? Like we don't. And so we just need to make it fun. Like we need to make the game fun, but most of all, we need to make sure that it's worthwhile content. Like it just needs to be good content. Like is it content that you want to show, like people want to watch? Is it content that content creators want to create? Like is it just fun content? Is your community having a good time? Because I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitch constantly during the day. Like I always have tabs open, like multiple tabs open at any point, and that's what you need. Like it just needs to be good content. And I think when you pay people $1 million, you don't need to care if it's good content as much. But when you're indie developers, you're desperately making sure that is great content, because otherwise people won't show it, people won't stream it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing of what you mentioned right there, is that even from a content creation standpoint, like I used to live stream back in the day, and a game we used to live stream all the time was like Jackbox. And on the surface level, I mean, Jackbox is a good game. It's not a great game, but it's an entertaining game. It's a game that allows me as a creator to sit in front of a camera and keep an audience of 10, 12, 20 people entertained for an hour or so. So that excites me, I guess, about Death Carnival, that you're kind of keeping that in mind of saying, hey, how can we make this an entertaining game to play, but also an entertaining game to create with or to watch when it comes to those platforms? I think that's pretty awesome.
It's definitely going to be really, really exciting to play Death Carnival, because like part of why I actually got into making games was because of two things. Three things. Actually, try to keep this short. So the first thing is, way back in school, in computer science class, like after I finished assignments, I would just make games. Like I would just make these mini games and for classmates to play. And even though the subject was not about making games, and that was fun for me. And of course, I mentioned, this is about creating a really unique experience in terms of gameplay, right? It's about creating an experience where you overcome near impossible odds, because it's parallel to our experience as indie developers. It's not easy for indie developers to survive. Every year I can't imagine how many indie studios start and die per year. Must be countless. Must be like, probably exactly like how small businesses in the world start up and die. So it's very hard for indie developers. But we started to do something. We started to create that exact experience, and we also set out to create an exact experience where back in the day I played a lot of games. And I played so much games that when I played competitively, I get into this zone, this kind of like athlete's zone, where you just have complete focus, nothing else matters, and you become good, and you play through instinct. You play completely through instinct, and you don't think about what to do next. You just know what to do next. You know when to dodge, you know when to shoot, you know when to jump. We wanted to marry that experience with arcade easy controls. We wanted casual players to be able to use arcade controls, but experience what it feels like to be a hardcore 16 hours a day gamer, without spending 16 hours a day, spending 16 hours a day. We wanted them to experience the hardcoreness of gaming, the true hardcore aspect of gaming, within 30 minutes of playing the game. And I feel that we've done exactly that. And that is exactly why we focused so much time on development.
Do you foresee a competitive scene potentially starting with Death Carnival after launch?
Definitely. We planned this title to be a 10-year, 20-year title.
Oh, wow.
All the things we're doing is just the beginning. It's just the foundation of what we're doing. We have our roadmap is massive. Like everything that we've talked about on interviews, that we've talked about, that we've exposed to the world, that is only a tiny fraction of our actual internal roadmap. We have, by making sure the content creation part is great, by making sure the gameplay is highly accessible for casual gamers, for pro gamers, making sure all the features, the single player co-op aspects, the PvP aspects, all of that, we line all that up, plus a lot of really innovative technology that we have through the roadmap down the road, stuff that people have not done before in the gaming industry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, all of that equates to a title that can run for a good 10, crossing our fingers, 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the new trend for games right now, is that you pick up a game and It's one of those things that I have a love-hate relationship about. I don't have enough time to play games, but I love the fact that Destiny 2, I paid $60 for it a couple years ago, and I can still pick it up today, and it's still relevant, and it's still good to play. So that definitely excites me. Now, you mentioned a roadmap. I understand there are things you can't dive into, but my audience would hold me over a fire if I did not ask the question. Do you guys have a release date or a release window in mind at this point?
Yeah, so we're going to be releasing it in phases. Because our roadmap is just, there's so many chunks to our roadmaps, and it just goes on for years and years and years already. So the first major release is going to be our early access release, and that is going to be this year. And
initially, the main two platforms are going to be Steam and Stadia, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're going to be, it's already playable with crossplay on Windows, on Linux, on Mac, and on Stadia. We've been fighting each other between Stadia players and PC players already.
The other question I have is, with all those different platforms, what has the development cycle been like between developing for locally based hardware on a computer or a laptop or something like that versus a cloud-based platform like Stadia? Can you touch on any of the differences there?
Yeah, it's actually not too bad because when you look at what Steam development typically is like. So for Steam development, they also have pretty good testing tools, and Stadia also have good testing tools. So what happens is we develop it internally and we test both internally. But when you want to deploy it to other testers on Steam, for example, you still have to upload it to Steam. Right, and what Steam has, it's a difference patcher. So it only uploads the differences in the build. So you don't upload the full build every single time. You only upload the difference in the contents, in the code. So it's a much smaller upload size when you upload to Steam. Stadia has that too. So when you upload, you don't have to upload the whole thing. You can upload just the differences. So whenever you do patches, whenever you do deploy to the cloud, it's not that much difference than deploying to Steam.
So on the Stadia side, I mean, you've been kind of porting this game or developing this game for Stadia for quite a while now. This year, they announced something like low change porting, which are all these brand new tools. Does that alter your development process at all? Or are you pretty much just, hey, we've already done this? Or do they ask you, hey, can you do it this way? Have they altered anything on that end?
I think when we were starting, like that was when Stadia was, that was pretty early on. So now it's just getting easier and easier to do porting. To stay the functions that Stadia have, the interfaces that developers have access to for Stadia, it's just much easier now. Like it's just in general easier and easier. So the new guys have it easier than than us before.
Now, obviously, you've got your hands full with everything going on with the game development and trying to get it to launch a little later this year. What have you been playing? What games do you play in your free time? Do you watch any movies on your free time? What are you up to?
So we're right now in a super crunch, and I feel like we go from crunch to crunch to crunch, simply because we're such a small team still in comparison, especially to the AAA titles who have like 1,000 people working on it.
How many people are on your team?
Currently, we're at about 10 people.
Okay.
Depends on what elements you count. But we're for a small team, and each person have to handle multiple things, compared to big studios where you only handle this narrow strip of responsibilities. So we handle a lot of things. Like one day for me, for example, I may handle the marketing side, and one day I may handle something on the business side, and one day I may be stuck in meetings. One day I may work on the user interface. One day I may make some explosions. And yeah, so we handle a whole bunch of different things. In terms of what we play and what we watch, I would say I play Final Fantasy 14.
Okay.
I do Savage Raids on Final Fantasy 14 because I'm crazy and hardcore like that.
Were you a big World of Warcraft fan?
Back in the day, in the beginning, but not lately.
Okay.
I mean, I did raids on all of it, but not for a while. And then I took a long break, and then I played Final Fantasy when it came out. And Final Fantasy 14 wasn't that good, but about the whole story of Final Fantasy 14 2.0, where I mean Yoshi P just completely amazing genius of the gaming industry, turned it around, and just he put gamers first. He put community first. What do you love? What do you what do you enjoy? Focus on that, and he made an amazing game.
Well, I guess in closing, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. It means a lot. I know you guys are hyper busy over there, and I wish you and your entire team, every single one of them, the best of luck as you guys continue on development, because I know, just like the rest of my community, we cannot wait to see this game launch. So if somebody watching this wants to find out more about Death Carnival, where should they go?
They can go on the website deathcarnival.com, but mostly they can find us hanging out on discord.gg/DC. Because we're there 24/7, and we're always happy to have a chat, and you're welcome to just type hey, say hi, and you can ask us anything.
Unfortunately, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Nerf Report. Until next time, my name is Bryant. This obviously is one of the best gaming news shows on the internet, and until next time, I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Hey, thanks again for checking out our channel. If you like what you saw and you want to see more content just like it, which who wouldn't, hit the subscribe button right there. And while you're down there, hit the like button. Maybe even consider becoming a Nerf Report best friend, just like the people listed down below did. In fact, don't you want to see your name there? I know I do.